Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our constitution, is it in danger, is the big question that we're asking tonight. In 2024, as India celebrated 75 years of adoption of the Indian constitution, it has also become a central issue for social debate, for political debate and debates around our democracy. Samvidhan Khatre Mein Hai became the opposition's war cry, the narrative that literally punctured the center through a debate on the constitution in parliament. So elections and then the debate in Sansad was all around whether we are following the tenets of the constitution as originally envisaged. Unfortunately, instead of a meaningful rebuttal, there was marpeat over various issues, including respect to the father of the constitution, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Was this constitution in danger a valid concern, or is it a war cry only for political toolkits? Is a question that we've often debated in the field of politics. But today, for citizens of India, for us as people who look at this democracy beyond just the politics of it, is this reality or rhetoric is the question we are asking tonight. And joining me tonight are two very, very senior legal eagles. I have with me Mr. Lalit, Justice Lalit, former Chief Justice of India. Also joining me tonight is senior, very senior legal eagle, senior advocate, Dushyant Dave. And we want to set the record straight on issues that are actually troubling people of this country, because the debate and the entire narrative around is just so polarized. Whether our institutions have betrayed the Constitution, whether our politics has betrayed the Constitution, whether democracy is really under threat, whether the Constitution is really under threat. These are some issues we'll take up with our esteemed guest today. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me. And let me begin with you, Justice Lalit. This has been an oft-repeated lament, if one were to call it that Constitution is in danger, the democracy is in danger because the Constitution has been defied in the present day. I want to ask you, do you today believe that the Constitution really is in danger, democracy is in danger, because the current custodians of the Constitution, whether it is the executive or the judiciary, have one way or another put a threat to it?
No, I don't believe or subscribe to that theory at all. According to me, we have lived up to the promise, number one. We have expanded the scope of inclusivity under the Constitution. What we are doing in last 75 years or as of now is taking the same spirit further up and develop it in this fashion. Now, I'll give you 2 or 3 instances. Number one, when the Constitution was originally enacted, there were only 2 sets of beneficiaries who were supposed to be part of affirmative action: scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Of course, there was one small segment which was Anglo-Indian community, for whom there used to be a nomination of 2 seats in one of the houses of the parliament. Leave aside those Anglo-Indians. Today, what has happened is that apart from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, one more set of beneficiary which got added was actually OBCs, as a part of your office memorandum which got challenged in Indira Sahni. So therefore, that was the 3rd set of persons who got the benefit as affirmative action. Then the 4th set, when it came to women getting representation in some of the elected kind of, bodies, like say Panchayat Samitis, Municipal Council, 73rd, 74th Amendment, the women were also given representation to the extent of 1/3 at the lower level. That same spirit is now getting carried by 106th Amendment by giving them representation in Lok Sabha as well as what is called the state legislatures. So therefore, one more set of beneficiary gets added. Then call it by interpretative process or Parliament taking the cue from what the Supreme Court then laid down. Every child in this country is now entitled to free and compulsory good quality education when he is between the ages of 6 to 14. So therefore, one more set of beneficiary getting added. If you see the course of constitution, 4 new regions have been added to the Indian Union, starting with Dadra Nagar Haveli, Goa, Daman and Diu, then Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal, and finally Sikkim. We haven't lost any territory. Our borders are secure. So therefore, if you look at it from that front, perhaps I think we are doing quite well. If you again think in terms of what used to be our per capita income in 1947 and today, even with the explosion in population, because we were just about 55 crores that time, today we are 140 crores, correct? Even then our per capita income is far, far greater. Literacy rate is again something, which is commendable. So therefore, if you look at it from various perspectives, what you find is that the Constitution is now truly getting inclusive in every character. And that is something very, very commendable. Can you imagine 250 years of US Constitution and how many Black Americans or African origin Americans have been senators there? In last 250 years, only 18. Look at our idea. Every house has to have 1/3 at least, 12.5% and 15 and 7.5%. Almost say one fourth of that has to have come from segments which are supposed to be depressed communities. So we give far greater representation to them. That's the kind of logic which our Constitution has laid down, and we are living up to that.
Well said, but Dushyant Dave, are we looking at India from 1947 to 2024, getting into 2025, or are we only looking at the last 10 years when we lament that the Constitution is under threat?
See, first and foremost, Chief Justice Lalit is one of the most respected jurists, a judge and a lawyer of this country. It's therefore very difficult for one to disagree with what he says. But having said that, I must say with great respect, Chief Justice, that the cup is either half full or it is half empty. To my mind, it is completely empty. Constitution is a document which is not at all damaged. It is a document as it survives today. 114 days of hard work by the Constituent Assembly to bring this finest of the documents is intact. Question is, what was provided therein by these great men and women who comprise the Constituent Assembly, led by great leaders like Rajendra Prasad, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and of course Dr. Ambedkar. Those principles, to my mind, have really been watered down substantially. Take preamble, 3 things: equality, justice, fraternity. Each one is non-existent today. You scratch the surface and you will see. In a country, Mr. Justice Lalit rightly says, very few black Africans. I mean, the largest party of this country in the last election didn't give Muslim a single seat. There is no parliamentarian from a majority party. What are we talking about? We have 16% population of Muslims in this country, and we are keeping them away. Large-scale violations of human rights in this country. Hundreds of people have been killed in the name of encounter, as if the executive has the right to take away people's lives. National Human Rights Commission remains silent. High Court remains silent. Supreme Court remains silent. What are we talking about? If we can't protect fundamental rights of citizens, their right to life, forget liberty, and executive can kill to its will, and nobody asks a question. Look at Hathras, what happened. A poor Dalit girl was raped, and nothing happened. Those people were acquitted. So, we have to see fraternity today in this country is a serious, serious victim. And, we have to realize that these great men and women, when they gave the Constitution to us, They really wanted this country to prosper. It's not enough that, some development has taken place, some development has taken place there. If 85 plus crore people, Prime Minister says proudly in the election manifesto of 2024, that I give free food to 85 crore plus people and Modi ki guarantee ke main 5 saal tak deta rahunga. What does it mean? It means 85 plus crore people are living below poverty line. Now, out of 140 crore, if 85 crore are still dependent on state largesse for food, as essential as that, then can we say that we have progressed? Of course, we have progressed a little bit, but that's lopsided. We also have our Andanis and Ambanis. Question is, the large number of people, the large section of the people, I would go to the extent of saying more than 75% people are today deprived in terms of not just their social status. It's all right to say that Dalits have got, reservation, they have got these seats, that seat. We all know what happens in our villages. In Gujarat, a Dalit cannot ride a horse to go and get married. Is this what constitutional framers wanted? And if he sits, he is killed. There are instances where they have been killed. So what are we talking about? We are talking about a nation which is seriously fractured. And the reason is this. Navika, you must remember, 4th of October 1948, this is what Ambedkar had said, that if you want to pervert constitution, you just change the form of the administration. And this is exactly what has happened. Ambedkar had also predicted on 25th November 1949 that will India lose democracy? He asked a rhetorical question to himself. He says, of course it will, when there is a landslide, meaning election. Mrs. Gandhi did it. Now Mr. Modi is doing it. We don't need a declared emergency. We have this form of governance, which is really troublesome. And I personally feel that it's necessary for us as a nation, and I commend you for this initiative, that where you have a debate like this, it is necessary for us that we must have a debate, because constitutional morality must be set into mind of every citizen. Because only if he has that, he has a reverence and love for the Constitution. So that's absent. That's the real problem.
But the point that Dushyant Daveji makes, that today there is no equality, there is no fraternity, there is no justice.
In that very speech, Dr. Ambedkar said, everything depends upon the persons who run the machinery. So therefore, the document as such, there is nothing wrong. We are students of law. I'm not a student of politics or political science.
But the people running it, have they? Because the law is implemented by people.
It's again a matter of perception. Somebody may say that the people are running amok. Somebody may say that the people who are running the Constitution and the institutions are doing an excellent job.
Where do you stand?
Ultimately, who are the arbiters of that? It is the electorate. So therefore, the laws have been put in place by the appropriate legislations. All that we need to do is work in that direction, correct? So therefore, it's not as if that as a result of that, the Constitution has failed us. It may be that the machinery, the administration is not galvanizing itself in true spirit of the Constitution.
So are we picking up, Dushyant Daveji, at random examples of where there may be such breakdown and generalizing them into, because that's the charge very often made. Right now, there are two parts of the society. There is the left liberal so-called ecosystem, and there is the right ecosystem. From what I gather from your point, the right system is running amok. The others say the left system doesn't see its own backyard and only comments on the right system. Where do you stand on that question?
I am neither for right nor for left. Let's understand. I am a constitutional lover, as Chief Justice Lalit is. And he substantially agrees with my viewpoint. We are ad inam on one aspect, that Constitution as a document is immortal. That's one thing we must understand. That's one thing everybody who is in power must understand, be it politicians, be it bureaucrats, be it judges, that this is a document. Question is, are you doing a lip service to this document, or you are doing a real service? What Chief Justice Lalit says, democracy, yes, there is a democracy, but this is not a real democracy. The real democracy will be where you can have people who will not be arrested because they are criticizing a chief minister or a prime minister, which is happening. I mean, somebody criticizes Mamta, he is put into jail. Somebody criticizes Mr. Modi, he is put into jail. What kind of a country is this? Why can't I have a right to criticize Prime Minister Mr. Modi? I may respect him individually, personally, but I may disagree with his policy and say that he is taking this country to a disastrous level. I have a right to say so. Should I be arrested for it? You have to understand that, look from any angle you look at it, we are a social democracy. And unless and until the social democracy is made meaningful, where today we can really bring merely, giving these benefits to communities and all that, to my mind, is not real achievement of the constitutional aims. The constitutional aims can be achieved when there is true fraternity. As Ambedkar said, these are trinity: justice, equality, and fraternity. Unless every one of them works, in tandem, what is happening today? Look at judicial system. 5.5 crore cases are pending. People are not getting justice for 10, 20 years. How lakhs of people are in jail. They are not able to get, bail these days. What kind of judicial system we have? I mean, I am part of it. Chief Justice Lalit has been a very successful lawyer, a successful judge, and very successful Chief Justice, although for a short stint. We respect him for that. But let's not be blind to the reality on the ground that people are deprived of their right to justice.
As he raised the question of the public, people, for example, a very, very pertinent point that people are arrested for criticizing people, but it happens across the board.
We quite see that. Now, if you go by the old logic, which was, say, Kedarnath Singh's case, correct? Even the journalist criticizing the government, what Bal Gangadhar Tilak had actually addressed in his address was, I have every right to criticize the policies of the government. No question on that issue. All that I can actually should not be doing is that I should not be inciting people to take up to violence. That was the demarcating line, which was Bal Gangadhar Tilak's address. Kedarnath Singh accepted that. Today, as a result of that, what is the logic? The logic is that you have every right to criticize the policies of the government. Correct? Based on that, as a law which has been laid down by the Supreme Court, naturally every citizen could never be sort of put in the wrong place as a result of maybe criticizing the policies of the government. It may be happening in one of the random cases that people are still put in jail. But then you have the courts, so therefore courts will always come to your rescue.
There is a debate. You may be, the former Chief Justice or a lawyer. The fact is that for people, there is this whole debate about reservation versus merit. The fact of the matter is now caste census, how far should that go? Should that become a tenet of upholding democracy? Is this only an issue that is for vote bank politics? That's a debate in which this country has been dragged into. I want to ask you, are there enough safeguards to take care of the downtrodden, whether they are from lower caste or lower economic strata of the society? Or a caste census determination of who's where is still necessary? Will that actually bring the society together, or will it divide it further?
See, first and foremost, as a matter of fact, the last caste census was done in this country was in the year 1932. That was Hutton Commission. Thereafter, what we are following is the same percentage. We just translate that percentage to the present population. Say, for instance, in 1932, a particular community was said to be, say, 2% of the total population of that particular region or the state. Today, we translate that 2% quotient, put it on the present population, and say that so-and-so population must be belonging to that particular community. So therefore, if you want to be abreast of everything, naturally you have to have the facts which are clear. And perhaps I think the idea to have a caste census is something which will be good for the community, good for the society. Why? Number one, right from 1932, there hasn't been a census which has been undertaken for the entire country. The last attempt was made in Bihar just about 2 years back. Correct? So therefore, it evoked some kind of mixed reaction. Somebody supported, some people did not support it. So that's one part on the facts. Second, whether are you suggesting that downtrodden are not being given the opportunity? According to me, in fact, the fact that many states are now thinking in terms of eliminating certain communities and saying that because they are more advanced, so therefore let them not corner the advantages, and the advantages must actually percolate to the deepest of the pockets, in that sense, of the society. So therefore you accept one fact, that at least certain communities have advanced as a result of benefit of reservation or affirmative action. And that's where the success lies. It is true that we need to identify. So therefore, for such purposes, perhaps I think caste census would be a brilliant idea, so that we know exactly which are the communities which really require the affirmative action.
But it
And
should
that's why.
only be based on caste, or should it be based on economic criteria?
Now, economic criteria, EWS reservation is something which is part of the Constitution. I must also say that I was part of the minority. According to the minority, such kind of economic reservation was not consistent with the Constitution. But the majority has taken a different view. So therefore, 105th Amendment, 103rd or 5th Amendment, which brought in the EWS reservation in 15 and 16, both in educational institution and in also government sector employment, the validity has been sustained by the Supreme Court. So therefore, the initiative taken by the Parliament has actually been screened by the Supreme Court and accepted by the Supreme Court.
Dushyant Dave.
You are right that reservation is a very serious issue which country needs to debate. But for 5,000 years, we have treated those belonging to the deprived community in an extremely poor way. Even today, we don't show them the respect that they deserve as human beings. Equality is the essential cornerstone of our Constitution. That equality is, really not available to them. Yes, some creamy section, as Justice Lalit mentions, have benefited. But today, take for example, private engineering and medical colleges. How much money do they charge to give admissions? Does anybody talk about them? Those colleges in Manipal and other places, these private universities that this kind government has now recognized, some 500 of them, you know how much money they are charging for admissions? Anywhere between 10 lakhs for law to about 1 crore for medical educations or more. So you are not willing to talk about that reservation, which the rich and the powerful can get. But you are willing to, discuss that these people who have been deprived for 5,000 years are whether to be continued to be given reservation. They must be given reservation. Unless and until we bring the society on equal status, reservation is there to stay. And we must respect it. Just because I am a Brahmin doesn't mean that I should shy away from reservation. After all, I must look at my citizens, fellow citizens. So it's a very difficult debate, Navika ji. We need a very serious understanding. We need to really introspect as a nation how we can really help people at the lowest levels.
I agree with you that there are some disadvantaged sections of the society. But please look at the modern day country. There are educated people. I mean, middle class, does it not have the right to exist? Look at the brain drain. These are complex issues because merit does not find too much of premium on it. Is that debate to be set aside forever because we're still going through a churning process where equality is being addressed? The issue here, Justice Lalit, is about, while we address this, are we forgetting the other side? It is a seesaw of sorts. But when we address one side of the requirement in society, are we forgetting the other side? Are we forgetting the need for merit, for creating value within the country, for competing with the world outside? It's a debate that has to be a holistic debate. Are we getting blown away only by the politics of it?
See, number one, first of all, the moment you speak of affirmative action, the affirmative action is to bring the lot from the level and bring it at par with all the other citizens or the other communities. So therefore, so long as that part is not sort of achieved, the level is not attained by that particular community, your affirmative action has to continue. On that score, there is no difficulty, which means that perhaps concept of reservation is something which is here to stay for a while, no doubt about it. Now look at it from the other perspective. So therefore, what you are now trying to say is that merit versus sort of reservation, correct? We're still a very, very nascent democracy. What is the normal way in which 14th Amendment is considered by the American courts is what? They say our constitution is color blind. Though color conscious, it is color blind, which means, take for instance, affirmative action is normally in two areas. One, at the expense of a fellow citizen, because the moment you give admission through reservation quota to a person, you actually deprive a person in the merit list, the last man gets sort of pushed out. So therefore, that kind of affirmative action is at the expense of a fellow citizen. Other affirmative action, for instance, you give scholarship, free coaching, everything. That will be, the expenditure will be borne by the exchequer. So therefore, it is at the expense of the, I said exchequer, that means the same thing. So at the expense of the state or the exchequer. So therefore, that kind of affirmative action is normally accepted to be the correct way in US. The second part, that is the state bearing everything. But at the same time, they do not subscribe to the idea that very well, in order to give admission to somebody, you may discard somebody from the merit list. That is exactly why Bakke and other cases which were decided by the US Supreme Court, saying that very well, some kind of diversity on campus may be something, an issue which the perhaps institutions like Harvard, Stanford can certainly consider. But the latest judgment is again going back to the same level, that sorry, we will not permit all of this. As against that, what we are doing is, we are still allowing what is called entry through the reservation or the quota system, correct? Now the next part. What does it actually mean so far as those candidates who call themselves in the merit list? Now, look at it from the other perspective. Initially, there used to be only 5 IITs, main IITs, with 2 other IITs which got in was that Banaras and Roorkee and then Guwahati, which were 3 other IITs. Today, we have almost 20 IITs. So if you're thinking in terms of sharing or having the piece of a cake or sharing the cake, you are now trying to expand the size of that cake as well. So therefore, the opportunities are also getting enhanced. Student community has better opportunities. Now, what the point which Mr. Dave said is absolutely right, that when it comes to private institutions, there is no concept of reservation. But the Constitution enables the state. Now, as a result of the amendment, which has been brought in so far as 15 and 16 are concerned. So therefore, even a reservation as a concept can be worked in a private institution.
Let me also now move to the issue of whether there should be a universal, civil code. Should there be different laws? 77 years after independence, should be still having different laws for different people? Is it time to revisit that? Or is it really, because the fathers of our constitution have mentioned a time frame, or at least the desire, the objective to go towards that. Do you think it is always going to be overshadowed by the political instincts on this one? Or do you think as a country, just for the justice part that you talk, there should be a uniform civil code?
It's a very, very difficult and debatable question. See, if you ask me purely as a lawyer, as a person, as a student of law, then the very idea of your Article 14 is that let there not be any distinction when it comes to sections of the people or individuals. So going by that as a logic, certainly yes, there should not be any discrimination or distinction. But the very concept of Article 14 itself is, at times there can be a classification. So therefore, the very fact that there can be a classification, it depends upon the state action. So therefore, as a student of law, my individual, perhaps I think, the idea would be, let there not be any distinction. But then it is left to the elected representatives, the parliament, to actually sort of, bring to bear what they consider it to be appropriate.
A simple issue of right to pray. Now, we are at two extremes, Mr. Dave. On the one side, there is this whole debate that everything is being dug up to find what existed there in the ancient times. On the other hand, we also have a law for another faith where any property is being looked at as, even a 1500-year-old temple is being looked at as a Waqf land, Waqf property. Now, these two issues at two ends of the spectrum are creating a little bit of dissonance. A little bit is a polite way of putting it, but it is creating dissonance in the society. How should we see it? Should we only see it as an issue of faith? Should we go beyond that and look at it as an issue where the Places of Worship Act has said that ASI protected institutions are out of it? The Waqf, can it claim an old temple, an ancient temple of 1500? Will the confrontation between these two issues be only settled politically, or is there something in the Constitution?
First answer to that is that we should forget all these issues. We have a lot to achieve in this country. We have to fight poverty. We have to fight inequality. We have to fight illiteracy. We have to fight the gap between the rich and the poor. We have to fight so many issues. We have to fight unemployment. I mean, today, I estimate, sir, that almost 20 crore youth are sitting at home without doing any work. I mean, we are losing this great advantage that we have of a population, young population, which is the best in the world. So all these, religion must be at home. Religion cannot be worn on the sleeves. I am deeply religious. Every morning I light a lamp and remember every god and of every faith. It's not just my own gods. My mother was deeply Shivite, who worshipped, as nobody would ever do. So I know Chief Justice Lalit is deeply spiritual. I know that. But we keep spirituality in our hearts at home. Now, you have to understand, it's not easy what you are asking. Constitution, the one thread that runs to the Constitution is secularism. The word secularism, which was introduced by Mrs. Gandhi in preamble, is not relevant. There are so many articles of the Constitution which actually speak about secularism. 25, 26, 29, 30. And if you read the debates, unfortunately, today's politicians have no time to read anything. If you read the Constituent Assembly debates, they speak about Rig Veda, they speak about Mahabharata, they speak about Sufi saints, they speak about all kinds of, you should see the kind of debates that went on. And they then decided that every community must have a right to, follow their religion, keep their culture, follow their practices. All this is part of secularism. We don't want to undo what Babur did. He was a barbaric. Do you want to be remembered 200 years later that we were barbaric? No. Where will we stop? I have no doubt that every Islamic monument perhaps was built on a Hindu temple. But then every Hindu temple was built on a Jain temple or a Buddhist temple, as Devdutt Patnaik rightly points out. Are we going to start digging all this? Should we dig up Taj Mahal? Should we dig up Red Fort? We don't need it. This is a beautiful country. This country has a role to play in the world which is unparalleled. It is being, deprived of that right, we the people, by our politicians. Our politicians are leading into this nonsense. They are not willing to, because they have a lot to hide. They don't want to talk about poverty. They don't want to talk about unemployment. So they want to talk about temples. The issue is that every political party, every leader, one prays to them with folded hand. Put your hands together. And this is exactly what Ambedkar had said in his first speech. He said, this country, if it wants to succeed, then you must respect the opponents. You must respect their viewpoints. You must all sit together, have a unity. According to me, this is a time where we need a unity government. Irrespective of political spectrum, they should all put their heads together, and we must have a plan for next 50 or 100 years, how we are going to take this country forward. I mean, they are fighting like cats and dogs.
Is this new, Justice Lalit? Is this new? Fighting like cats and dogs? Is it only something that we've seen in the last decade? Or is
I
it
still,
quintessentially?
as a youngster, I used to follow the debates in Parliament, and persons like Pilu Modi, persons
Inu
like
Masani.
Vinu Masani, Madhu Limaye,
Vajpayee ji.
I would say the
Quality.
quality of the debates, the kind of scholastic the exposure to that, perhaps that is missing.
And they were not shut down by the speaker or the...
So therefore, perhaps that part
Chairman.
is missing today. Yes, we don't have that kind of caliber when it comes to, the debates, if you simply put it at that level. But yes, there is always a churning process. So I would, people like Dushyant Dave should actually contest election and, come to the floor of the house.
There is no place for people like us.
So
in
therefore,
politics.
the moment
We
you
won't
have
get-
good quality persons coming up and taking up the job of, in the electoral politics very, very seriously, nothing wrong in that. I still have one example and which I quote every time. Justice K.S. Hegde, somebody who was brought up in the typical, what you call the judicial role. He stepped down as judge of the Supreme Court, but then contested election, became the Speaker of the House. So therefore, it's not as if that area is something which is forbidden or sort of, no kind of territory.
Would you
for
go into politics?
Given a chance, yes.
Yes?
Yes, why not?
Oh, that's a big...
Why
And
not?
I can assure
You will?
I can assure you, he will contribute immensely.
Well said, well said. But I come back to the question, have things deteriorated only in the last decade? Because that's how people look at it.
I won't say, typically
Modi
last.
years.
So therefore, if your idea is 10 years, no. It has actually deteriorated way back.
Correct.
Way
I
back.
agree there. I agree there.
You agree there?
Absolutely.
Many would believe that you would think that
No,
Modi
I
years
agree.
are responsible.
I think India's downfall started with Mrs. Indira Gandhi. No doubt about it.
So leave aside
but
that,
you must
you
give
know.
credit to her that having imposed emergency, she had the courage to lift it. And then we had real democracy. Today, this silent dictatorship or authoritarianism is really hurting this country. It is. Nobody is willing to speak. And
Really? Every evening we have debates and
Oh,
everybody
come on
says
now.
whatever
Oh, no,
they
no,
have
no,
to.
no, just
And
don't-
you are speaking.
Don't give me that.
I completely disagree there that according to me that there are people are more vigilant. The social media is one platform which is
Yes,
now available to every common citizen.
That is the
It is
saving
also,
grace.
every common citizen has some window to ventilate his or her grievances.
Unless he is visited by somebody.
That's a different thing, but at least there is a platform which is
Absolutely,
available.
I agree.
In good old days, when it used to be minus the social media and without the digital world, perhaps I think you need to coax a particular editor so that, he may publish whatever you wish to publish. So it would depend upon, so many kind of, the orbits which
Sifting.
one had to cross.
Yeah.
Today, you don't have to do that. So therefore, it's a great tool which is in the hands of every citizen.
Has it also
So
worsened the discourse?
19.1a in true spirit has actually got now the wings of, the imagination by every citizen.
But has that also coarsened the discourse?
I won't agree to that. Yes, I mean, sometimes people misuse. Everything is misused. I mean, even mainstream media is being misused by political parties. We all know that. But social media is, as Chief Justice Lalit rightly points out today, is a platform which is available to a common man. And, he can stand up and speak. He can express his views. He can just go on to Twitter and say what he likes and doesn't like. Look, you must understand that we are not here to criticize the government. Our idea is to open their eyes. I remember that song which I used to love when I was young in the 70s, a very beautiful song, Chief Justice, which was something to this effect. Now is the time to set things right. Now is the time to set things right. We don't need a revolution. We just need to open eyes. We really need to open our eyes. And we want our leaders to open eyes. They have a duty to us, to the 140 crore people. See, we are blessed. We are that 1% or 5% of people who are blessed. There are people who are really suffering in myriad ways. And these politicians, these bureaucrats, these judges, all in power must realize that they are public servants. They have to serve them and serve them in real spirit, forgetting their differences, their ideologies. Everybody must have an ideology. Nothing wrong about it. What's wrong about right or left ideology? I mean, nothing. France was leftist many years ago. I mean, so it's all right. But we must respect everybody. I mean, look at the kind of disrespect we show to our greatest leaders. I mean, people are questioning Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Dr. Ambedkar. Why? I mean, they are the people who did so much to give us this freedom, this, democracy, this nation. They, have sacrificed to give us. So we must, as somebody says very beautifully, what are those words? हम लाए हैं तूफान से किश्ती निकाल के इस देश को
रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल के.
That's the advice to us and to our politicians. Let's pray that they understand it.
Well said. And when you talk about the media, may I also tell you, the media is, one allegation is the media is controlled, mainstream media is controlled by the government. The other side of the story is we are also boycotted. And there are a lot of FIRs against us by, some who actually lament the control by the government. Which side should we be on? Well, it's a big question.
You should not be afraid of those FIRs. We are willing to appear for you free of charge.
Well, thank you very much. But the fact of the story is that force and power is exercised on every side of the fence. But the Constitution survives. The brave survive. And we have to look every opportunity that comes our way as a challenge, look it in the eye and move forward. And the rightest words are...
Einstein put it brilliantly. You must have heard his statement. He said, Constitution's success depends on determination of every citizen to defend it. And that's what we need today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No question on that.
And today, at least we sitting here, pray and we also resolve to stand up for the Constitution, for the right of everybody. And the Constitution is as good as the people who stand up and fight for it and live by it.
Constitution is always good. It will be, taken further by a good set of people.
On that note, thank you very much, Justice Lalit, and thank you very much, Mr. Dave, for joining me and for a very enlightening debate that we've started. We look forward to doing many more of these in coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
एक्सटीरियर पेंटिंग हाँ सुपर ब्रो कौन सा पेंट
नया बिरला ओपस
अरे